Dear Birgit, who are you and what do you do professionally?
I am a general practitioner and naturopath for more than 20 years and was always looking for a method for patients who had unclear diagnoses or complaint patterns that traditional medicine couldn't capture.
Immer auf der Suche nach einer Methode für Patienten, die unklare Diagnosen hatten oder die Beschwerdebilder hatten, die eben die traditionelle Medizin nicht erfassen konnte.
And that was actually my path into PSE. Of course, I also practiced many other naturopathic methods. But PSE was a wonderful, clear, and simple diagnostic and therapeutic procedure for me.
So, what excites you about PSE? Please, go ahead and dive in.
Yes, it excites me that we now have the ability to address the issue of life energy, which we know is a very important basic component of being healthy and the well-being of humans. Suddenly, we had the ability to determine at what energy level a patient actually is.
Dass man jetzt auf einmal die Möglichkeit hatte, zu erfassen, in welchem Energielevel befindet sich eigentlich ein Patient.
And experience over the last 20 years has shown that this energy level is very low in patients with physical and also psychological illnesses and disorders.
Mit körperlichen und auch seelischen Erkrankungen, Störungen immer sehr erniedrigt ist.
And now, of course, it continues. Not only is the energy level low, but we also have the ability to test with a device. What is behind it? Why is this important basic factor of life energy reduced in sick people? And I found that to be an exceptionally exciting, wonderful, and for me, genuinely holistic approach.
How do you see the advantage of PSE over other methods?
The advantage is that these conflicts and soul injuries of the past are usually not present to the patients, right?
Seelenverletzungen der Vergangenheit sind in der Regel den Patienten ja nicht präsent. Ja?
They are repressed, pushed into the subconscious. And therefore, the patients primarily have no access to them. It is also difficult in conversation to find access to something that is present in the subconscious. And now we actually have the possibility to approach such topics with the help of testing. I found that to be quite fantastic. And it is very moving for the patients as well. And now comes the next part. What possibility do we have to treat something if we can diagnose it? And indeed, it is the case that we now have the opportunity to withdraw energy from a repressed, past conflict that has stored away our life energy.
Diesem alten Konflikt seine Energie zu entziehen.
And with that, the level rises, which we have now observed for more than 20 years. And when the energy level rises, then the patients usually feel better too.
Do you have any specific examples of the types of complaints patients come to you with? And how are you able to help them? How do they feel afterwards?
As a general practitioner, I was fortunate to encounter a wide range of diagnoses through psychosomatic energetics. Indeed, I can say that I was able to help patients with a variety of issues, whether they had headaches, rheumatic complaints, pressure on the heart, abdominal pain, bladder infections, emotional issues, depression, psychological exhaustion, or anxiety disorders.
Seelische Beschwerden haben, Depressionen oder psychische Erschöpfungszustände oder Angststörungen.
It's clear that there is an enormously broad spectrum and what role the life energy and these repressed conflicts that have stored energy play. Because when we resolve these conflicts, patients generally feel better. Take, for example, a man in his early 50s who comes to the clinic with a persistent pressure on his heart, similar to angina pectoris, feels very exhausted, not in a good mood, and has already been in a psychosomatic clinic. There's nothing physically wrong with his heart, and he is a bit desperate because antidepressants do not help. After testing, we see that his energy level is significantly reduced. So, the next step is to test. What kind of conflict is behind it? In his case, it was a conflict with fears related to the heart. And now we could simply resolve this step by step with these special remedies that are always precisely related to the conflict. Then we observe that the energy level rises during the treatment, and depending on how long the illness has lasted, not just one conflict needs to be resolved. We see how the energy values increase and how patients start to feel better, which I found simply fantastic.
So practically, this energy that becomes available again is then used by the body for self-healing, which in turn improves the symptoms.
Exactly, because the great thing about PSE is that it is a genuinely holistic method, affecting both the physical level through our unconscious autonomic nervous system, which is closely linked to life energy, influencing cellular function which may be impaired. With improved uptake of life energy, this function can be enhanced. At the same time, there is a stabilization at the emotional level. This means we become psychologically more resilient, we have more drive, more joy, and more zest for life, which for me was simply a brilliant approach and so easy in therapy. You simply take a few drops of the homeopathic remedy in the morning and evening. It's that simple. That was another factor that I found simply wonderful.
I believe you've already answered the question, but perhaps you could elaborate further on how PSE can be particularly helpful with traumas, whether from early childhood or later life events such as deaths or separations.
Yes, it's clear that we can't erase what we've experienced as soul injuries or traumas in the past. That's lived soul life. But such a trauma costs us a tremendous amount of life energy. This is again what we can test for in PSE. And it's also important to understand that when the energy level rises, these people are gradually able to cope with the problem better.
Where do you then see the opportunities for PSE in the whole spectrum of therapists? Which therapists can you recommend PSE to, as well as which patients?
It's clear that doctors, naturopaths work with it, but also dentists and veterinarians use it because problems with life energy can appear everywhere. And I think it would also be a good idea for coaches who have to accompany their clients and deal with their emotional problems, and with PSE you can quickly get to the point. That's what our psychiatrists and psychotherapists say, for example. It's often very difficult to find something out in conversation, but here I get directly to the point because the testing goes relatively quickly once you're somewhat experienced.
Do you have anything to add or something you definitely want to share with the world?
Yes, I just want to say how much PSE has changed my own life. Of course, one usually comes across such therapies when one is in a personal life crisis. And the process of realization, we can't explain all that here, what PSE implies in terms of background knowledge, which is simply terrific. But what is possible is to get a process of self-realization that helps one's personal life. And if I can speak for myself, I'd like to say that PSE has helped me develop a great serenity and processes of realization in my social environment, whether with patients, with my family, with friends. You get a higher perspective on things, and I just find that enormously helpful for life.